Andrew, hello Andrew, good evening. Are you poised to talk to us about to sort of link in
There, I'm
the last
unmuted.
forum's talk
Yeah.
and how we could influence our planners?
Okay. Well, yes, this followed on from there's a few thoughts after the excellent presentation that we heard from Exeter on Passivhaus, and it did strike me that Exeter has one huge advantage in that the local authority actually builds houses, so it has some influence on a lot of what happens there. But most authorities don't build houses, and I thought I would look at what is happening in South Somerset and what has happened in the sort of 10 years that I've been involved in trying to involved in planning in Martock, where we are, where I am. Can I can I share the screen? If I go there, I want
You
to
should
try
be able to.
Yeah, I think I can, if I can share that.
Yep, you're there.
Okay. So you can see this here, policy EQ1. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Right. Now you'll probably recognize policy EQ1. That is the South Somerset policy for addressing climate change. The important thing that I want to draw your attention to is this bit here, where it talks about the Code for Sustainable Homes Level 4, because this became part of the central part of the climate change part of the South Somerset local plan. It was developed, what I think, under the old Labour government, wasn't it, and then taken over, and then rather abruptly, at about 2013 or 2014, the rug was pulled out from under this, and the Code for Sustainable Homes was no longer the measure by which we could assess the carbon footprint of buildings, and nothing was put in its place. Well, that's actually not quite true, because one or two things did happen. And one thing that happened was that Community Secretary Eric Pickles, after abandoning this, he introduced, through, strangely, the House of Lords, this here, for specific issues of energy performance, local planning authorities will continue to be able to set and apply policies in their local plan. And specifically, the Code for Sustainable Homes Level 4, any authority could insist that all homes met that level. The problem is nobody quite knew then what that level was and what was the equivalent of that level in what was now in force. And what was now in force was that all insulation standards were moved to building regulations. And that means that, of course, we, the public, and the planning officers don't see them at all, so that we never have a chance to comment or complain or anything. A little bit on the building regulations. They set a baseline standard for carbon emissions in kilograms of carbon dioxide per year. And this was a computed standard based on the floor area to define the maximum legal emission. So houses that were built could not go beyond that maximum legal emission of carbon dioxide. This is called the target emissions rate, or TER. I think in planning you have to get used to 3-letter acronyms. there's also various technical standards, which I don't need to go into. And then developers are all required to compute and later test their design emission rate for their buildings. And their design emission rate must be less than the target emission rate. And they then can express this by subtracting their design rate from the target rate and expressing it as a percentage to show how much better their houses were than the target. So you could talk about 5% below target, 10% below target. Passivhaus would be 100% below target. Now, the problem is that the baseline target rate is extremely low. And because we have no control over this in the houses that are built, developers get away with building houses which are very, very low. In fact, they're almost illegal in the insulation standards that they apply. But we don't know that because they're not obliged to tell us. And in fact, the Code for Sustainable Homes Level 4, which is the target rate which we should be aiming at, is the equivalent of around 20% better than the target emissions rate. So we should be building houses according to the old regulation here, or as amended by future government policy. We now should insist that all houses meet the 20% below the building regulations target, but we don't. The ones that were built in Martok are being built at the moment are 5% below. Good architects are now building 20, 40, 50, 60% below. Big developers, as I said, tend to build to this baseline because it's cheap. I've just looked at this up to today. The Barrett's development in Martok is 5.8% below target. Passivhaus, as I said before, is 100% below. We can at least insist on houses being 20% below if we wanted to. So what can we do? One is to raise the level of understanding of this among our councillors, and perhaps routinely comment on the energy performance in our responses, our parish responses to the applications. Now, this comment will probably mean we can't approve this because, or we feel we can't approve this because we don't know what the energy performance is, and we'd like to see it meet the standard that South Somerset has laid down, which is a minimum of 20% below the building regulation target. And if we all start doing that, I think the planners the planning officers will eventually take some notice, particularly in view of the fact that South Somerset does have a climate emergency, and buildings are perhaps one of the biggest contributors to carbon footprint. And what we should, I think, be letting our own representatives know that we expect them to take their climate declaration seriously and promote the equivalent of level 4 Code for Sustainable Homes as the target that we want. Over and above that, we should perhaps also be promoting things like good solar orientation, building in solar panels and so on right from the start. Now, none of this, as far as I can see, is happening at the moment. And I think if we can start at the parish and alert our representatives to this and alert the planning office to this in all our parish responses, then at least it'll force them to take a bit of notice of what they should be doing. Just a thought. Let me get rid of that and come back. Perhaps any
just a
comments
moment.
on it?
Andrew, just a moment. You've got a slight crackle coming from the jack going into the computer might need just a little wiggle.
Ah, this is what Graham, I think, was talking about last time. Is it really bad?
We can still hear you, but because what you're saying is so interesting, it'd be nice to have a clearer signal.
The only thing I can do, if you hold on a second.
Yep. Sorry to disturb you. On you go.
Sorry?
I'm sorry to disturb you.
No, that's fine. That's all I have to say. It's just to go over the what has happened in the last 5 years. It's very sad that the code for sustainable homes was dropped, but I think it was dropped under a lot of pressure from the larger developers. I'm sure of that. I have a brother who's an architect, and the question is now, how can we put it back? We were told that this was going to be reformed 2015, 2016, 2017, but we haven't seen any change yet.
Andrew, would you like to draft something that perhaps we could distribute?
Yeah, certainly.
And maybe I don't know what the others think. Some wording that.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What happened? Thank you. I just wonder if you've been comparing that at all to the future home standard that's coming in.
Yes, I have, and I sent in from the village. We sent in a response to the future home standards, and that's going to make things a lot better. But when is that going to come in, Cara? I've no idea. I suspect 2, 3, 4 years. I don't know.
Well, it's due imminently in the next change to the planning, so it should be in by 2022.
I'll believe that when I see it.
Although Somerset's is going through a transition now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is, but when it comes to building regulations, that can't be changed. So that comes down to statutory requirements beyond the local authority.
So it's a county-wide thing or a national thing, is it?
It's national.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether the transition process, they'll have lots of other things on their mind.
I mean, the only thing is who is going to be the planning authority.
Yeah.
But building regulations are beyond just giving planning permission. You have to build to those standards.
Yeah, but the point is that the building regulations are essentially secret. We never see what standard that of heat insulation that houses are being designed to. We just don't see that. We had to request that for our Barrett's development here, and it took a lot of it was getting blood out of a stone.